In this episode, we are trying to celebrate a great Kenyan police officer by remembering him. Most of those I remember are no longer with us. I prefer that such recordings of our bosses while they are still alive and sane, and they listen and know that they have been appreciated. The issue of recording when they are dead, the issue of passing our gratitude when they are dead or during their funeral is something I don't like. I'd rather he or she hears what he or she did, especially if he or she is not aware of how his or her juniors appreciated him or her. Today, we are going to look at Raphael Alphonse Mutuku KIETI. People used to go by the name Ram KIETI. Raphael Alphonse Mutuku KIETI. During our time, it was preferable for one to have three names. The first name was a Christian name. The second was your tribal name. And the third was the surname. That is your father's name or your clan name or family name. Unfortunately for a person like me, my father's name is in the middle. I'm rightly supposed to be called James JI-TENGE Lando, JKL. But my grandfather and myself, we are both JI-TENGEs. So I could choose either to call myself James JI-TENGE Lando, meaning that I'm using JI-TENGE as my name, or assume that my name is the English name, James, then my father's name, then my grandfather's name. That is how it is. But most people used to have Christian name and then traditional name and then surname. But some few people chose to have four names. Some few people chose to have four names, like Raphael Alphonse Mutuku KIETI. They decided to have an additional Christian name or religious name of their fathers. So, this officer we are talking about today, he was called Raphael Mutuku. And his father was called Alphonse KIETI. That is why he chose the first two Christian names, his name, his father's, then traditional name, his name and his father's. Raphael Alphonse, his father was Alphonse. Then he was Mutuku and his father was KIETI. The same applies to Chief Justice Chesoni. Chief Justice Chesoni's full name was Richard Zachius Richard Mutsunga Chesoni. His names were Zachius or Zakayo Mutsunga. And his father, who was my brother-in-law, was Richard Chesoni. So there are some people who chose to use the four names, and this is one of them. Among the members of the intelligence, I can safely say that the best two at that level, at the provincial level, the best two were him and Christopher Maluki Lati. You can see Maluki didn't use his father's Christian name. They were both equally good. But their different way of administration was KIETI's administration was a bit. I'm trying to look for a polite way name. I can say it was administrative, but he was a bit strict. He's the type of a person like Benson Okemwa. He was also of that level. These are the people whom, when you talked to him, he would always want you at the back of your head to remember that you are not of the same age and you are not of the same rank. That is, there was that disciplinarian, yeah. There was that disciplinarianism behind him. Yes, you could talk to him freely, you could whatever, but he wanted you at all times to have it in your mind, to find it in your mind that you are not of the same age and you are not of the same rank. On the other hand, Christopher Maluki Lati was very diplomatic. When you enter his office and close the door, he wanted to reason with you. I would say two things about Christopher Maluki Lati. When I get his picture, I'll try to talk about him. Is that he hated somebody who assumed that you are his boss or her boss and you knew everything. He always wanted to discuss with you things, and then he was very happy with anybody who challenged him intellectual-wise. Whenever I hear of somebody going for a PhD in the university and has a professor who will be leading him into getting, I don't know what language they use there, but when you are going for a PhD, you usually have two people who have PhD who would assist you in getting the PhD. I think that is how Christopher Maluki Lati used to handle. You would come with a problem, you'd say, supposing you are the one to handle, what would you have handled? And both of them had a lot of trust in me, and they even believed. I think they were embarrassed by me being, my work being terminated early, because they somehow believed that one day I would be a very senior person, and they would try to influence how I'll be when I reach those positions that they are. The first time I met him, before I talk of how I first I met him, I would just say that in intelligence, uh, it allowed people of different ranks to interact more freely, more like in an academic situation than a military situation. You'd find that a constable in the NIS, when they meet in the presence of a deputy commissioner of police, because nowadays they have changed ranks, let me use the former ranks, a constable and a deputy commissioner, let's say that a constable and a regional boss, what do you now have a regional boss like Bungei? In the intelligence, there is that relaxed atmosphere. He is more relaxed than a constable in the general duty police officers when a constable is before an OCPD. Or he's even more comfortable, relaxed, yeah. He's more relaxed than a constable with an inspector in either administration police, general service unit, or even the ASTU, anti-stock theft unit. The first time I met him was in January 1988. I had just arrived in Garissa after leaving West Pokot. I remember I went to his office early in the morning. When I went there, he wanted to see me. And as I said in the intelligence, a constable and a deputy commissioner, the air is not as tense as in other formations. So when I went to see him, the atmosphere was the intelligence style. But I noticed that he welcomed me so well, and he was very friendly. Especially, I met him many more times, but that very first he was very welcoming and very friendly, to an extent that you'd think that it is, let's say, the PPO entering his office or something like that. That is the first time we met, and he told me that he was impressed that I had spent 5 years in West Pokot, an operation area, participated in lottery operation, which was deadly, and yet, when I had completed my 5 years, instead of wanting to go and work to work in the down Kenya places, my interest was to go to Wajir. I told him no, I didn't want to go to Wajir. I had applied to go to Mandera. Said he corrected himself. Then he asked me why I had offered to go to Wajir and to Mandera. When other people are going the other side, I wanted to go the other side. I told him, you know, in journalism, they say that if you use selective information, you give a different picture than somebody who gives the whole picture. But in intelligence, we call it using the truth to hide the truth. Let me use the language of journalism. Selective information to give a certain picture. I had had a rough time in West Pokot. I'll give you a few examples. One, there was a time when my name was supposed to be forwarded for a course of an inspector because I was a Form 6. And the person who was to forward my name was Chief Inspector George Amina Musewe. And George Amina Musewe, it's a long story, but I'm trying to summarize it. George Amina Musewe, before he drafted that thing, but before he took it for typing, he called me and told me, can you go and ask your father if he knows George Amina Musewe? I went, that weekend he gave me an off. I went to meet my father, asked him if he knew George Amina Musewe. My father said, Amina Musewe. That was a sergeant whom I used to work under, and he was I said, no, the person I know cannot be older than you. So we just concluded that they were namesakes. So I just went back. I remember that day meeting Amina Musewe at Mbolea House. We were taking a beer. I was from home and he had gone to Kitale, so there was that Land Rover and we were to go back in the same vehicle. George Amina Musewe asked me, did you ask your father whether he knew me? I said, yeah. My father he was recalling somebody with a name almost similar like yours, but he was saying that he was a sergeant when my father was a constable. So I think, he said, no, that is my father. His father and my father had worked together, and my father held his father in high esteem. Then the guy turned, suddenly became very hostile in a bar in Kitale. He told me that he had been a corporal in Magadi police station, and my father, being the OCPD Kajiado 1969, had demoted him to constable. Were it not for the infamous James Ephantos Mungai, who reversed the thing, and then he turned to me and asked me in English, how can I be promoting somebody whose father had demoted me? So we went to the office on Monday. He told the and just left it that. Later on, we worked under Jamin Wanambisi Simiyu. Jamin Wanambisi Simiyu, we had no problem with each other. But he was approaching his retirement age, and he had just gotten the rank of chief inspector. So this thing, if you ask me even today, is that he must have sympathized with the people. You know, he is somebody whose promotions had been delayed, over delayed. For him to reach that rank nearly when he's nearing his retirement, it must have had a past where somebody blocked him. So he hated me, not because of any other thing, but he is a victim of senior police officer mistreating them, and he was now in charge of a son of a senior officer. So he had to pay back in a small bit. And then it happened that somebody called Constable Cheseto had his kid did well. His kid did well, and the kid was called to Chewayet. The kid had A minus, A minus, A minus in standard 7, and a neighbor once, when I heard that, he said, you know, those days it was airplane, three of them, and this young boy had gotten A minus, three of them. So it was, in fact, it was he was the what we call alliance material, but he had chosen Chewayet. Shortly upon joining Form 1, he died mysteriously, and people, Chewayet was a Sabaot, but people started saying that how comes that a neighbor can say hata werevu wanakufaga, and then suddenly the child, he must have aliroga huyo mtoto. And it was during the funeral vigil, and people decided, and then people looked around and saw nobody from that family was there. So they went and burned that family in the house. They locked the house from inside and then burned that grass-thatched house. Cheseto was arrested. The office really went to his assistance. Now that is the reason why I now said enough is enough. Cheseto, the office assisted him, and I was on the forefront because that I was at a place called Kolongolo. So I used to pass there regularly to check on him when he was in Kitale police cells. Uh, the office, we all stood by him and said that since the killers had left, I mean, the killers came from his house on a fire vigil during the funeral of his child, you cannot place him as a suspect. The officer assisted him, and the case ended. Simultaneously, at that time, Kenya had, Kenya had a problem with the border in the north. There is an OCPD who took a lot of cattle from there and took them to Athi River. And when asked, he said, Kenya has no jurisdiction in that place called Elemi Triangle. Elemi Triangle is that part of a country that is touching on Ethiopia, Sudan, nowadays South Sudan, and Kenya. So it was said that Cheseto goes there. And when they said that Cheseto should go there, the Simiyu Wanambisi said no. He has been having problems. He has been having problems. He has just lost his kid, and the province said if you don't want Jaseto to go there, then that office should give out a constable to go there. That is when I had the Simiyu ringing the province, telling them that JI-TENGE has offered to go there. I overheard him. I eavesdropped his talking on the phone. Then when I was so confused and annoyed and whatever, when I went to the police station, I found a signal which was saying that any officer below the rank of inspector who is volunteering to go to Northeastern should forward his or her name. I took that signal, went to it to Mr. Simiyu's place, and had already drafted a signal offering to go there, but offering to go to Mandera. I just took it to Mr. Simiyu for the regulation was that a junior officer could not give out a signal for transmission from the radio. So it's only a senior person. It was for him to give to sign and rubber stamp it, and then give me back to take it to the. So there is a story there, but I'm I'm telling you why I applied. So when Mr. KIETI asked me why I chose, remember I've just told you that selective information leads to a different picture. I asked myself, if in 1972 my father used to stay in Wajir, I've stayed in Wajir, and if my father used to stay about a decade later in Garissa, let me just say that I want to go to Mandera. So when he asked me, I just said, if you go to Wajir, the OCPD's office, you'll find my father's name, having worked there. 10 or so years later, I was in Garissa when my father was the provincial CID officer. So I want another 10 years also to find me in Mandera, to have covered the Northeastern. Second thing is, I want also to be in those hardship areas when I'm young, so that when I start getting old, I can I can now start working in down Kenya. This thing really impressed him. This thing really impressed him. And also, that is why I'm explaining that he was so excited to see me. He said, and we hear my file had not yet arrived. You know, you reach there, then your file will follow you a month or so after. Said, we hear that you are a Form 6. Is it true? I said, I'm a Form 6. And what did you get in Form 6? Said, a Form 6 constable offering to work in hardship areas. He could not believe his eyes. And then he asked me, have you passed the professional exams? The professional exams were 5. I don't know whether they are still 5, because I hear nowadays there are new subjects which have been brought in, subjects such as human rights, interpersonal relationships, such things. I don't know about today, but those days it was 5 subjects. I told him that I've cleared. He told me whether I've attempted the professional exam. I said, I have attempted all of them, and out of the 5, I've passed 4. It is only remaining 1. He said, which one is this? I said, Criminal Procedure Code. He was so impressed. He said, now listen, you go and do, I've posted you to Habaswein. But you go and work, so that next time we hear that Form 6s are going to Kiganjo for special inspector's course, and then I'll write a forwarding letter recommending. In fact, I'm writing immediately, so that when you go for the interview, when you go for the interview, you could be 200 people and the space is only for 25. So some of these recommendation letters really assist should there be anybody who performed well in the interview more than you. So he said, I'm proceeding to. And then I told him, sir, I arrived yesterday around lunchtime, uh, and then stayed at the police lines at Nyamiaka's place. And Nyamiaka introduced me to signalers who showed me a signal which indicated that they are Form 6s. If you have Form 6s, you should forward their name. Told me, can you go back to the radio room and get that signal for me immediately? I said, no, I can't, sir. You see, I'm in the intelligence, and those people don't know me. They see that my coming up, being very new, and ndaenda kwa chimbo something, it may create a problem. Then he picked up a phone, called the provincial police officer and said, I hear there is such and such a signal. The provincial police officer said, yes, it is. He said, can you forward it for me, please? Because I have two constables who are from 6S. Then the provincial police officer forwarded the signal to him. Then he told me, okay, you go. There is a colleague of yours in Wajir who is who is not in Wajir town but in the outpost. I'll talk to the Wajir in charge, the Wajir boss, superintendent. I'll remember his name when I talk. I'll tell the superintendent that the two of you should stay in Wajir. You stop working and start reading police books. Mbaria, Francis Mbaria. I'll tell Superintendent Francis Mbaria not to allocate you duties so that the two of you can read. We used to have a problem with the intelligence. Our work was not police related, but when we went for promotion interview with people, we used to have problems. For example, your work is to carry out intelligence, industrial intelligence, the trade union, political, and so on. Everything except military intelligence. But in places where there are no military people, you carry out military intelligence, should it ever be seen. So you, from there, you go to an interview, you are asked, can you compile, what is the difference between a case file, an inquest file, and a traffic file? What is contained in subfile A, subfile? We used to have those problems. So he told us, he told me that me and the other fellow, whom I later learned to be called Mukurunjeru, we should start getting police books and reading because of our interview. Then I left the following day. Went to Wajir. I found Mukurunjeru had been recalled. Mukurunjeru was at a place called Tarbach. Now, between Wajir, on your way to Mandera, before you reach Elwak, there are two very dangerous places even today. One is called Tarbach and another one is called Kotulo. Actually, I think there are two Kotulos. There is Wajir Kotulo and Mandera Kotulo. The stretch between Kotulo, just like we have Uthiru Nairobi and Uthiru Kiambu. Between Kotulo and Tarbach, that place has always been very, very risky from Abraham's time. Now, he was recalled, another officer was taken there, and then we spent time preparing for that. And Mukurunjeru had a beard. If you know, if you look at the picture, just please, he's called Senator Medhu. Yeah, Senator Medhu of Nyandarua. He had a beard like that one. Of course, he was in the intelligence. So we spent time reading and whatever. Then the signal came. The signal came for in Wajir, and it came for 3 people. Those who were in the general duties. It came for Sylvester Gidhungo. It came for Bethwel Waweru Oburu and Omondi Sihudu. I remember seeing them going to the quartermaster, that is the uniform store, to change their uniform, the old one into new ones, and then take them to the tailor for stitching so that they go for the interview. They went, just stayed that way. But we later received a phone call, and I can explain that the reason why me and Mukurunjeru, our message came late. You see, for a letter to come from police headquarters, it goes to PPO, Northeastern, and then it goes to OCPD Wajir. It's a bit shorter than ours that goes to Nyati House, then from Nyati House goes to, it is a bit longer. It's like we are taking, it passes through more hands than the other person. They received the information and went for the interview. We just stayed, we were confused, we saw our turn had not come. And then a few days later, I think 2 or 3, a message came. It was at 8 when we were in the office. If I'm not wrong, it was on a Thursday. It was on a Thursday, 8 a.m. We were told, that that 24 hours from that time, 24 hours, we were supposed to be in Kiganjo for an interview. Mukurunjeru was somebody who was very moody. He said, now they have their own people. Why do they have to? I said, no, let us go and fight from the front. And those days, a bus used to leave day one. It used to leave Nairobi Sili at 5. So it reaches Garissa at noon. Then what happens is there are some people who are light and some people other who board the bus. But you don't board that bus. You board another bus, fresh one, fresh driver, fresh bus, fresh conductor. But you just go to, if you are seat number 17, you go to a seat number 17. And so they check people who have alighted. If they see that 10 people have alighted, then 10 people will be given will be given that position to go on. And that vehicle would arrive in Wajir at 7 or 8 in the evening. You sleep, then the following day you take the second bus. That is now day one, it reaches Wajir in the evening. Day two, around afternoon, early afternoon, around 3, it reaches Mandera. And then day 4 is when it turns back. Now, at the time when we were told that we were to go, that is the day that the bus had arrived from Nairobi. So it had to that is the day that it was leaving Wajir to Mandera. So we had to wait around 8 a.m. when at around 8 a.m. when we are supposed to be in Kiganjo. That is the time when the bus had left Wajir, not Mandera, and it had traveled for 2 to 3 hours at a place called Kotulo before you reach Ramu. So imagine if we were to wait for that bus at the time when we were boarding, that is around 11 or noon, is when our interview is supposed to be ending in Kiganjo. And Mukuru Njeru was very moody. Hawa watu kama wako na watu yao, kwa nini wanatusumbua? So wangetuacha nini? I said no, keep. It happened that we received the information at 8 a.m. and it happened that around 10 a.m. there was a Land Rover which was going to Central Provincial Headquarters. Central Provincial Headquarters. That is the Land Rover we boarded. It had 6 armed. You see, in Northeastern, then I don't know about today, because nowadays I see vehicles in the towns, even in a Pro Box. Those days it used to be Land Rover and Land Cruiser only. Of course, lorries and so on. So at 10 a.m., there was a Land Rover which was going to Central Provincial Headquarters, and it was loaded. So we had to squeeze in 2 of us. When we squeezed in, around 5 is when we were arriving in Kiganjo. That is at 5 p.m. is when we were arriving in Kiganjo. Remember, the interview is tomorrow. I can tell you there is a God in heaven. I can tell you there is a God in heaven. And as Kikuyu say, nega iwa magegania na nega iwa shiama. Imagine 9, we are so confused. We look at the timetable of how things were going to happen, and we just, na tumevaa uniform. Imagine intelligence officers wamevaa uniform, and then suddenly we learned that there is a vehicle. Now that vehicle had 8 constables. 2 of them did not have firearms, me and Mukuru Njeru. So when we arrived at 5 in the evening, we looked like people who are from I don't want to say portion mill, but I would like to say like people who are from a sawmill. We look like people who are from a sawmill. Vumbi. And whom do we meet? The person we meet is Kilingi. I'm trying to summarize this thing because it's a long story. Kilingi had a habit of, instead of him fighting to get an opportunity, he used to have a system where he would discourage all those who are around him so that he confidently goes to an interview. That is how he used to operate. And as I've said that my bosses in um, in Kapenguria used to block me. There's a day when I was at Sigor, I had talked to Inspector Evans Ernest Oponyo. I had talked to Evans Ernest Oponyo to include my name as a police constable in Sigor police post so that it goes through the district and whatever. But Kilingi, seeing that Sigor would be sent to, first of all, he talked to Inspector Oponyo and said that I was not under him, and so my name should not be forwarded. My name should not be forwarded. Oponyo said, I'll forward. Then he asked for permission. He boarded a matatu. He boarded a matatu which was called Wishan. Wishan is a Pokot word for a bird in Luo. Luo, the bird in Luo is called aluru. Aluru. And in Kiluya, it's called Isindu. So that matatu was called Wishan, traveled very fast, and the number plate for that vehicle was KWA 877. Now, if you ask me why I've crammed the number of vehicle, kindly go to parliamentary records, Parliament Hansard. You'll find that I talked of the vehicle that hit Fred Simiu Masinda at City Mortuary, and I gave the number plates off head, but it was found that I had just um miscalculated the number they had given. Is it 326? And the number was 362. That is the advantage of having a photographic mind. If your mind decides to reveal something, it will reveal. So he boarded a Matatu KWA 877 Wishani 504. If you go to register of motor vehicle, give that number and I'm sure you'll be told it was a 504 Matatu pickup. So he boarded that, rushed to Kapenguria. He did not go to the OCPD's place. He went to the special branch office and talked to my boss, Mr. Simiyu. Mr. Simiyu just called the OCPD and said, we understand that a constable of ours who is at Sigor, his name has been forwarded to you. So kindly, when you are forwarding the name to the province, exclude his name because we know he's a Form 6, so we are taking it through our own channels. So the OCPD agreed, but that was the end of the story. He never forwarded my name. So we were also meeting that Kilingi again, and as I've told you that Mukurunjeru was very moody, and if you look at him, he had beards like similar to that. Medhu is the senator for Nyandarua. Uh, that is how he looked. So he looked at somebody with that beard inside Kiganjo in a dormitory. By the way, Kiganjo dormitories are called barracks. Inside a barracks, he looked at us and said, "You are people from the intelligence." Yeah, he took us to the wall. There was a sign. There was a timetable there. We were supposed to be there on Monday. Now it was Friday. So he was telling us, there's no need of even going to Kiganjo headquarters. Just board the vehicle, go back to your station. But then he was sasa walitupotezea wakati sijui nini. I tried to talk to him but Mukuru Njeru, but he could not. Then I told Mukuru Njeru, we have an advantage. At least when we go back to Wajir, we are going to claim night outs. So it was cool. Then we had a problem there. We had uniforms which looked like we are from a sawmill. That is one. We had dirty boots. We were dirty ourselves. So we put on civilian clothes, took the uniform into a bag, told him, let's go. We went to four places in Kiganjo town. The first place we went was a barber shop, no, a tailoring shop. I told the people, can you wash this? And then, Kiganjo is very cold. So we told them, wash these clothes and then using your iron box, charcoal iron box, dry the clothings. Dry the clothings. You just iron it, place it aside, iron it until it dries. We paid them in advance. From there, we went to a barber shop. When we went to the barber shop, we wanted a haircut, which was the size that I have. There was no problem with Mukurunjeru, only the beard was a problem. Not only was he an intelligence officer, but he had a skin problem. He had a skin problem and said and he had even carried a doctor's letter. I told him, if you go for an interview, while looking at that, it will distract. First of all, I asked him, how does it perform if you clean shave? He said, if I clean shave after 3 or 4 days, I have rashes. I scratch. I told him, okay, you better have those rashes because after 3 days, the interview will have been over. You'll just have that and you'll take your medication. And by the time you are called back for the inspector's course, you will have, you'll have, you'll have that letter and you can always explain. Then we did that. After shaving, we had gone to the tailoring shop, barber shop. Then we went to a lodging where we paid them, said we are not sleeping here, but we want to take a hot bath. We took hot bath, and then with the dirty clothes, including the inner clothes, dirty ones, just did that. And then we went to a bar where we wanted to have drinks and and food, eat and drink. Kilingi was there, and I knew with Kilingi there, I'm used to him. I had known him for over 5 years. So my police number is 441 and his is 43. I knew that with him around, Mukurunjeru's morale would die. So I called Kilingi aside. I told him my salary was still going to Kapenguria. So we are all, I'm relying on my friend here. He's the one who is going to buy me alcohol. He's going to buy me food. And you see, I cannot be a bother to him and also use you as a bother to him. So why can't you step? He understood that it would be very expensive for Mukurunjeru, but that was not the reason. I wasn't even broke, but I had to look for an excuse that we say a story that had a dead end. So he left us. We went and collected the intelligence from junior staff of Kiganjo Police College. They were telling us that, the intelligence was how many people are needed, how many people have come for the interview. Said they are 25, they need 25 people. And rumors has it that 20 have already been taken. Perennial morale. Said, why? I said, no. If we knew that it was 25 and the 25 were open, we would, but now we know there are 5. Let us kaza kamba. So we went back and slept. I'd left one part. I took my shoes, my boots to a recruit's dormitory. This I just entered and said that was before we went to Kiganjo town. I was with Mukurunjero, and you see with his Savimbi beard. I just asked what is squad leader? Squad leader is the prefect. The squad leader came, said, where is this recruit who knows how to shine shoes, who usually shines shoes for teachers? Usually every time there used to be a good recruit who would do that. Then he showed, and then I told that recruit, shine this one better than you usually shine. And when you go to that temporary dormitory for Form 6s, for the inspectorate, special inspectorate. Ask where the bed is for the intelligence people. Now, this is the first time that the recruits were seeing people from it used to be called DSI. Yes, yes, yes. I even didn't tip him. I even didn't give him shoe polish or anything. He just used it. So when we came from Kiganjo town around 10 p.m., I found next to my bed shining shoes, and already came. I had also came with my uniform, which had been washed and dried using iron box. So we slept, then woke up in the morning. Here were two people. One side, Kilingi was there trying to tell us, sasa nyinyi si muingie tu gari murudi. And on the other hand, there was Mukurunjeru who was saying, whose morale was so broken. It was the day I said the special branch was to be interviewed on Monday, and it was Friday. We were 4 days late. Now it is 8 a.m. You know, Kiganjo, you cannot oversleep. At 3 a.m., recruits have gone out and what. So you have to be deaf to sleep. So at 8 we were ready and whatever and confused. We didn't even know where to start, whom to. Then a senior superintendent came. It was the day for the GSU to be trained. And you know, GSU, you just know them with their red beret. You can differentiate them from northeastern people and stock-theft people who had blue berets. So he came, looked for GSU, he could not find. Said, who are ready? There were two people of the intelligence. So he took us to the headquarters, to the college headquarters, and told the headquarters that hii watu intelligence are funny. Imagine everybody, nobody is ready and they were just ready. So you see, that was a point for us. And even before this, because I was senior to Bukurunjeru in employment, I was to go first. There was already a letter from Mr. KIETI praising me. So I'm going to an interview. The SSP was escorting us, already is praising the two of us, saying that we were always, scouts wanasema nini, be prepared. We are always prepared. Two, there was a letter by Mr. Raphael. I remember I said when I came, he said he was to write a very good letter. He said, consider him on that. He has passed his exam. He likes working in operation area. And here is an SSP say that these two people are ever ready. And you know what? The chairman of the interview of the panel was Mr. Kola. Mr. Kola is like an uncle to me. He was the provincial police officer when my father was the provincial CID officer Northeastern. Mr. Kola was the deputy commandant when I was a recruit. Now he was the commandant when I'm going for inspector's interview, and he was the chairman. Do I need to tell you that I was so confident and sure of whatever? So being sure that way, we completed our interview and went away. When we went away, I said that any message from police headquarters took longer to reach us. So the message came again, Githungo, Sylvester Githungo, Bethwel Waweru Buru, and Omonti Siud were called. We were not called. And you can see how things had worked for me. There was a recommendation letter. I had passed. I was employed earlier than most. Kola was more or less like an uncle to me. When I saw that these people had been taken and I was not taken, I accepted. I said, the better person has won. I remember going to meet them and wishing them well, because in my heart of hearts, knowing that the tables were good for me and had not been taken, then it went that I attended the course. And when I attended the course, I remember even during the course, every time we were going for anything or whatever, I was there was always that letter that Mr. KIETI had written recommending me. After attending the course, I was to be promoted to the rank of inspector. Now here is the Kizungumkuti. It reached a time when Kiganjo had written, you know, all my police courses, all of them I used to be number two. Number two, I've never been number three or number four or any other number. But my recruit course, I was number 11 out of 33 recruit course. And the inspectorate, special inspectorate course, I was number 22 out of 27. I would say that partly one of the reasons is, you see, you are an intelligence officer and you cover trade union, you cover criminal, no, not, okay, criminal intelligence, yes, you cover trade union, you cover political affairs, you cover everything. And then out of the blues, you are being asked to differentiate between a traffic file, an inquest file, and to differentiate between a case file, an inquest file, and a traffic file. And you are dealing with people who have worked in the, what do you call, crime branch. So I think that is the reason. Because some of the subjects which we are being taught for the first time, like command and leadership, things like observation, things like such things which were brand new, I was always leading. But when we came to these other ones, and that aggregate, I got that. So there's a day, and I've cut a lot of things because I can see the video is already very long. We reached a stage when my, and again, Mr. KIETI chased for my promotion to come. It came very fast. If you know Waweru Oburu, if you know Omondi Siudu, and if you know Sylvester Githungo, those are people from Wajir. We have people like Willie Simba. Willie Simba was from Mandera. We had people like Kioko, Bernard Nyamai Kioko. We had the famous Surambili Kihango Momanyi wa Salams. If you ask them, I was promoted 3 months ahead of them. And even the 3 months I was promoted ahead of them, it was delayed by a month. And it was delayed by a month because of Mr. KIETI. And I'll be forever graceful, Kizungu ngumu, grateful to him. It happened that even after he had chased my promotion and whatever, on the day the letter came, on the day that the letter arrived at his desk, the very same day, he received two letters. He received two letters. One was from my father. My father, we had issues, which I'd even talked. If you check on ART video, you'll see I'd taken a loan and I'd spent 3 years, 2.5 years to 3 years, getting almost a fifth of my salary, 4/5 going to that. Then he decided one day, when he knew that I was about to get promoted, he wrote that I used to hold a gun to his head and tell him, sema ngwe ama nikupige risasi. So there were two letters. First of all, there is a military man. He's also deceased. He was called Major Muse. Muse, no, not Muse age, but we have people who are called Muse. He was called Muse Wemali. Muse Wemali wrote to me a letter and said that he had received intelligence. He was a military major. The major is between the rank of captain and lieutenant colonel. Had received intelligence that my father had gone around telling people that I'll be sacked. So he was telling me to be very careful, and he gave me that letter. And I'd shown the letter to Mr. Baria, the district boss. So on the day, it reached a time when Mr. KIETI received the letter from and then he was wondering why I usually take a gun and show my own father to the head, say, sema ngwe ama nikupige risasi. And my father was just writing and saying, you see, I worked for the police, I worked for the government and the police, and I've retired. I just want a peaceful retirement. You to come here. And then Mr. Kieti was saying, for somebody who was a provincial CID officer, coming to think of that, for somebody who was a provincial CID officer to come and do that, then he must be telling the truth. So Mr. Kieti was torn. Da- does he promote me or sack me? And then he turned to Chief Inspector Chanzo, Wilson Virili Chanzo, told him, Huatenge is a lawyer and you are a lawyer. Of course, Chanzo was a Maragoli. He's swimming up there with the angels. Chanzo told him, this fellow, for him to attend the inspector's course, the father must have known. So I'm suspecting that this fellow's mother died, and he was brought up in the presence of a stepmother. So I think the stepmother has a picture on that. Anyway, it's a long story, but it is something to do with that. But that time my mother was yet to die. She later died, but not at that time, particular time. So when I went there, when I was there, that is what Chansu said. And Chansu did not know me. He just gave an expert opinion. So Mr. Kieti then decided not to sack me, but to investigate. So he did his own. It's a long story. He did his own investigation and recommended to Kakamega, because my father was a civilian licensed firearm officer. He recommended that the firearm be removed. That is how he did it, and then he took a month uh, thinking over it, and then he decided now that I should be promoted to the rank. I should have been promoted 4 months earlier than kina Sylvester Githungo, kina Waweru Oburu, kina Omondi Sihudu, Willie Simba, kina Keango Momanyi, you name them. I I can remember all the 27, 25. Baluka, there were so many people. Um, so I would have been promoted 4 months earlier, but he took 1 month to rethink about it. Then from there, he got concerned. There's a time he came on official duty. I was at a place called Ramu, but I was recalled to Mandera because of being a Form 6. And most of the time, the deputy county boss, deputy intelligence boss, county intelligence boss used to be away. Either the deputy or the boss, one of them would be away and I would act as. So they called me also to try to process intelligence. That is why I had a privilege of whichever station I would go, I would be placed in the collation and dissemination of intelligence. So when I was there, he came and visited me. There are some, we had, Mandera, we had around 4 sub-inspectors. We had 4 sub-inspectors. There was Clement Kitoko he was a Taita by tribe. We had Amina, there was somebody, another Amina, not Museo, but Amina Aluo, who was at Elwak. We had, we were around 4, but the others were the others were, one was in Takabo, one was in Ram, one was in Elwak, and I was in, so he came and fast tracked my confirmation or my, there's a day I just asked him, we are, the other sub-inspectors are out there in the field, and I'm at the headquarters. So basically, I'm like their boss. So why don't you appoint me as a confirmed inspector? And he made sure that I was now a full inspector, 2 pips. Shortly later after, with the pushing of Chanzu. Chanzu also influenced for him to transfer me out of Rift Valley before my time was over. I found him in not Rift Valley, Northeastern. I found him in Northeastern and left him there. But he was so concerned. There is something that he was so concerned about me. If he were alive and you talked to him, you'd say he was concerned about my intake of alcohol. I used to take alcohol 25 hours a day. But then with frustrations, uh, on one side, your colleagues, your bosses had blocked you. You went for the course while late. And on the other side again, they are harassing you because you are Lando's son. And then again, on the other side, Lando is also out there writing letters to your bosses and whatever. You'd find no doubt that I used to take alcohol. And I was so thin, some people uh, were concerned. You know, when you are thin, you don't eat and you drink, you may have died. So I know some, when they see me, they'll be shocked. They'll be shocked that it is uh, that. So he was so much concerned about me. The last time I saw him, he had visited Lati in Nakuru, and I waited for them when they had. I just left my office, went to the stairs, and then when they were coming out, they were saying, "Hey, Ovo, Amondo, Akwito, hey, Tina, Twitwe, Ovo, Museo, Nini." Then they met me there. I greeted them. Then he turned to Mr. KIETI and told him. He returned to Mr. Lati and told him, "I want you to give this young man chief inspector with immediate effect." Shortly after, I was recommended for chief inspector, but not Mr. Lati, but Mr. Lati's deputy. Talking about this angel, you can talk the whole day or the whole week. But Ram swim with the angels.